Great. So let's go into the discussion. And I think Anne-Sophie did a really great job with laying out all the initiatives that are ongoing so that we have a great overview what like digital money or these, euro-denominated forms of digital money, to be precise, we are talking about mean. And this panel will be about retail CBDC, so that's important to stress. So we have a lot on wholesale, stablecoins, commercial bank money tokens, whatever. This will be about retail, and we will use this panel to talk a lot about use cases and implementations. So there are way more aspects to dive deep into than the 40 minutes we have. So we don't talk about, the business models there or different aspects that go very deep. We really want to focus on use case and implementation. And to quickly recap on where we stand and to kind of summarize what Anne-Sophie kind of also summarized is, where do we stand with the digital euro? So we are currently within the euro system, so ECB and National Central Bank, in the preparation phase of the digital euro. So this means not decided yet if it will come, but preparing for that it could potentially come. But the euro system will also decide if a digital euro will come just after the regulation is in place, which is currently developed, has been proposed in the middle of last year by the European Commission. Now, just recently, the Parliament also provided a draft version of its own response, because it's always, negotiation between the three regulatory bodies in the EU, the Council, the Commission, and the Parliament. So this is ongoing. We have seen in January the ECB launched lots of calls and tenders for tech provider to support the development of the digital euro, because as a central bank, they don't want to build everything themselves. It's not like their mandate, and private sector has good expertise there with a very strong focus on offline payments. And I think, as far as I know, currently or what I'm reading between the lines is that if a digital euro comes, we are maybe talking about 2028 and 29ish. So just to get everybody a feeling, this is like, a topic that needs to be integrated everywhere, in processes, point of sale, payments. I mean, we know that this takes a while, and this is why this timeline, I think, is also kind of reasonable. Good, so that's just as a monologue in the beginning to kind of set the scene, and let's now go into the discussion. And first question to you, Alexandre, is like, maybe you can guide us a little on the experience. So if a digital euro would come, how would this feel? Like how would you pay with it? So how would this kind of payment experience work with the digital euro?
Yes, good morning, Jonas, and good morning to everyone and fellow panelists. Sorry for not being able to be with you today, but hopefully, the line is good. You can see and more of that, hear me well. To your question, actually, the digital euro will be actually another option for payments. I mean, that's really the goal here. So there is no objective of ruling out other private payment solutions. No objective of rolling out banknotes and cash, but just providing to citizens, to merchants, another options for paying. So that means in every type of environment, and I think, Jonas, you mentioned a few of those, especially talking about point of sale, but also online, P2P, government-based payments. I mean, all of those will be considered. The types of devices that actually are currently planned are of a wide range. I mean, they span across payment cards, especially for financial inclusion, and knowing that payment cards today in Europe are very much used, especially at point-of-sale terminals, but also going to more innovative areas that we all know and which are already not only emerging, but ramping up very quickly. And I mean digital mobile payment applications. So that means there will be probably, I mean, if everyone agrees, options to have mobile payment applications either separate, standalone, and or integrated within the existing mobile banking applications. And then they will use all the available technologies that we have today in those different environments, NFC for contactless-based payments, QR codes for either online or also a point-of-sale based terminal interaction. So, I mean, the actual environment for payments will be quite similar to what we see today, being very pervasive, very versatile as a payment tool, and having maybe a unique characteristic that not all payment applications and devices can provide, and which is the offline mode. So there will be more of an offline feature attached to the digital euro payment devices and or applications, which make it a unique characteristic, slightly different from online-based payment solutions. So I guess we'll get back, to the objectives and what is it for all this. But this will be the, let's say, wider user experience with a potential digital euro being issued.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thanks, Alex, trying to understand what this looks like in practice, so that you can pay, like your peer-to-peer with the phones, also offline, to also understand the experience. And maybe tackling on the second question, Alexander, you also kind of already raised, like, why is the Eurosystem looking into that? So what are the potential benefits that the ECB and other national central banks see in this digital euro initiative, to potentially launch it at a later stage?
Indeed, because a fair question is to ask, oh, but we already have this. We have those different tools today. So maybe I think there are some legitimate questions that are driving this digital euro project in itself. The first question is how to have a European payment solution available to European citizens, but also to European actors with market stakeholders there that will be distributing the digital euro. So we have an objective of having an option which is strategically independent with the digital euro. And that's a key objective that has been published and very well described from the early beginning. You know how the situation shapes up today in the retail payment space. And that has been a situation going on for like 15 years, where foreign actors are actually more and more increasingly present in the market. And there is the key question of asking ourselves, with the digital euro, maybe there is a possibility there to have an innovative European platform available to not only the citizens, but obviously to the payment service providers. And here, the objective is really a co-construction with the banks, with the commercial banks, to have this public-private partnership in payments being carried on and moved on forward, and having the digital euro as another means of payment, but answering that key objective of strategic independence. So obviously there is a lot there still to be done, but that's one of the key objectives that we have in mind. Another one, which is more in the central bank space, but which is heavily linked, is the fact that we have today a direct relationship as central banks with the consumers and merchants, which is cash, banknotes. And this is a sort of anchoring role that the central banks and the money, the currency plays. And it's a heavy role, because that role allows actually the whole economic system to be well shaped up and to be economically efficient. And the trust that cash is providing to all the actors, through also the banks and the commercial banks, which are making money, scriptural money, cashless money, because we supervise them and we ensure that trust is carried over, let's say, with the supervision mechanisms that we put in place. Well, we are not present today in the digital world, as the central banks issue banknotes directly to the public and to the merchants, but that's in the physical world, not in the digital space. So the key question for us is, do we need to be also present in the digital space with an equivalent of the banknote? And I think that's a very important question for our societies. That's a very important question, not only for the month or years to come, but for the near future, being like 10, 20, 30 years. We as central banks, do we need to adapt ourselves? Do we need to adapt our safe settlement asset to the digital world and to the digital era? And that is central bank money, which is providing the trust to the whole payment ecosystem and to all the economic agents. I think it's a topic which is a little bit less easy to perceive from a wider public perspective, but that's a very important one that we have in our mind. Now, let's be really honest, with the digital euro, we still need to build all the narratives that are necessary to prove the case with the various stakeholders. And I think in that space, when I talk about, the anchoring role of central bank money, this is a topic which is more for, politicians, for governments, and also for economic agents, but it's not well suited for consumers or for merchants. So there is a narrative also for consumers. I think today there isn't a payment solution that is available on the market that is free, highly private, and that has legal tender everywhere in the digital space. That's maybe an added feature that the digital euro can bring actually to the consumers. When I think of the stakeholders like the banks, I mean, obviously, I talked about this strategic independence at the early beginning, and that independence is also something of importance to them, leveraging the ability for them to provide other options, other payment options to their clients, being merchants and being consumers, and being European in nature. And then if we think of merchants, obviously merchants have an interest in being highly competitive with payments because they pay fees. So there is a narrative there to develop with merchants based on the business model that the digital euro could bring to the market, and the benefits for the merchants to actually make it a choice for the consumers. So as you can see, we have, let's say, key objectives which have to be refined, and sometimes the narrative going with it has to be slightly adapted, because depending on the categories of stakeholders you are talking to, obviously the interest for a digital euro would be rather different. So you said it, Jonas, and I'm finishing with that, sorry. We are starting the so-called preparation phase right now within the euro system. I think the preparation phase is there really to support the political debate. There are really topics to be discussed at a political level from a society perspective. We are there to support this legal framework discussion until maybe 2025, 2026, let's see. But we are there also to refine all those narratives regarding the different categories of stakeholders, and obviously to work on a possible architecture that would be there when the digital euro is issued, if it is issued, because it would be, of course, a central banker decision based on the legislative debate and the co-legislator, council, and members of parliament.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much, Alexandre, for this very dense overview on the goals for central banks, merchants. You also tackled on the end users, on the citizens, and that's something we definitely want to dive a little bit deeper now. So, Peter, the question to you, because Alexandre said, it's the potential privacy benefit with using the digital euro, also offline payments. Is this like convincing to you? So, do you think the end users will use it? What do you think? What are your use cases?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think when one talks about the digital euro, one has to make clear it's two different things. It's on the one hand a new payment system, and on the other hand a new payments object. And you compare it to highways. So the digital euro is a new payments highway, and in order to use the payments highway, you also need a new European card to use this highway. So everybody needs a second card to use this highway. Everybody needs a digital euro account to make payments within this new European payment system. So what the digital euro means is that you create a parallel structure for the whole payment system. Everybody needs a second account, and then a new highway is built to make the payments within Europe. And of course, this raises the question, why don't we just try to connect the existing payments highways in Europe, which are not completely connected, to connect them in order to get monetary sovereignty? And by doing this, you wouldn't need the new payments object, you wouldn't need a specific card to make use of this highway. So I think the digital euro is a very complicated parallel structure, which in my view is really not needed. And as far as the consumers are concerned, what is the advantage of having a parallel account, digital euro account? What is the advantage of it? You could say this car is more safe than the other cars because it's a central bank car, but it's not true, because you have the deposit insurance, and up to 100,000 euro, everything is insured. And so there's no argument in terms of safety. And this parallel structure of accounts makes it very problematic, very, very costly for banks, because they have to open the accounts, they have to manage the accounts, they don't get any money for it. Whenever people make a transfer from the commercial bank account to the digital euro account, they also lose their refinancing basis. They have to refinance it at a more costly rate with the central bank. So I don't see any rationale for this online digital euro. Because it's creating parallel structures. And as far as the offline digital euro is concerned, I think all those people who still use cash today, and nobody needs to use cash today, we simply don't need cash. So if people use cash, they use it for a purpose. Either they don't like digital, or they make transactions which they do not want to have recorded somewhere. And even if you make promises that it will be anonymous and everything, people won't believe it. So I don't think that the offline digital euro will be something that will be attractive. And so you can say, if you compare it to cash, the digital euro, you take away the physical attributes of cash and create a kind of digital cash. And I always compare it to alcohol-free wine. Most people like wine because it has alcohol, and most people like cash because it's physical. And if you take the physical feature away and you have a digital cash, it's like alcohol-free wine. Maybe some people like it, but it's not really what most people like. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Peter also... So the audience definitely liked your analogies and what you said. Maybe one follow-up question for you, Peter, is you talked on this payment infrastructure, just focus on the payment infrastructure, not on the payment object. Yeah. And I think there are also good examples where this worked pretty well, right? So if you look globally.
Yeah. I think what the obvious thing to do is to connect the existing highways, and that's the European Payments Initiative. I think that works nicely. And if in many countries you have these QR code-based payment systems, they work nicely, and they exactly have the effect that you don't need the credit card systems. I think if you have a direct credit QR code-based payment system, you don't need credit card providers. You can see it in Switzerland. We have Twint. You can see it in India. You can see it with PIX in Brazil. There are so many countries who have wonderful payment systems with no need to use these US providers. And I think that's what European Payments Initiative is aiming at. If the ECB wants to do something positive at low cost, it would be to get these European banks together to complete the European Payments Initiative.
Tao, turning to you next. So would you also agree that, in terms of like citizens use case, or would you see, like more use cases, or also when it comes maybe to cross-border, like, because there is a lot explored also on this for tourists, right? So also in the Chinese context, so that visitors or tourists can use that. What do you think about these use cases or general use cases for citizens around retail CBDC?
Thank you, Jonas. Regarding the foreign users, so we can think from a matrix, right? For any CBDC, there are 4 scenarios. One is a domestic user. They are using domestic CBDC. Domestic user using foreign CBDC. Foreign user using domestic CBDC. And the foreign user using foreign CBDC. So this is a matrix. For most of the case, for national citizen, it's the first one. Domestic user using domestic issued CBDC. For the other 3, could be related to foreigner. For a foreigner to use domestic CBDC, that's the foreign tourism. If they come to this country, they are using the local CBDC. For the foreign users, they can also use their foreign CBDC to be used in domestic currency, domestic country. So in this context, the eventual use cases in the long run should be the same as the domestic use cases. As a foreigner, if you go to from country A to country B, anything that the country B national citizen can do, they should be applied to the foreign users. And that means the foreign tourism. It can be categorized into 2 parts. One is about trade balance. One is a financial account. For the trade balance, if I'm a foreigner, I can use the domestic currency to buy online shopping, offline shopping in this country. That's one scenario. Another is if I'm using my foreign financial account to use domestic CBDC to make any cross-border payments. That's another scenario. So in this broad package, the key difference between national and foreign CBDC and users is the compliance and access. For national citizens, it's quite easy for you to access and relatively easy to regulate it and provide sufficient support, policy support. But for foreign users, it's much more challenging. You need access, you need settlement, you need compliance, you need data and privacy protection. Right? So that's a bunch of more work. So to summarize, the use cases of foreigners or foreign tourism eventually should be the same. But it takes some time, gradual approach by considering some capital flow management measures. Right? So that's what we are doing in IMF. We are trying to ensure consistency across borders in terms of regulation, data, and legal. So that's my quick answer.
Thank you. And I'm turning to you next, Joachim, is also the role of kind of technology innovation. So there is a very debate ongoing for years, like which role should blockchain technology play, for example, around all of that, right? And I also have the feeling that from the European side, also recently from the Parliament, there was clear that it should also support innovative use cases. And here we often talk about programmable payments or conditional payments, how it is now called. So what would you say, Joachim, currently about the role of these innovative blockchain-based use cases?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for welcoming the European School of Management and Technology and myself in my new role in the community. We are happy to participate. Thank you very much for the invitation to that panel. Good morning to everybody. Well, indeed, we are focusing at ESMT very much on the use cases, on advanced applications for the digital euro, because for the simple payment, of course, the benefit is maybe not that big, as Mr. Bofinger pointed out. Anyway, I didn't like so much the analyze with the highway. This would be also have been true to the innovation of making photographs on this thing. It's also a new highway, and finally, when it's disruptive, the old highways disappear. Or would you like to send the picture of this to a firm which develops the picture, prints the picture, and you can pick it up a week later? So here we are in a disruptive phase, and we have features of CBDC and the digital euro which are not provided by the traditional payment systems. The payment is safer, it is immediate, it is more private. Maybe the user experience is more or less the same. That's also true for the picture, because taking a picture with this or with the camera is more or less the same, but what is associated with it is different. Well, as conditional payments are concerned, we see an enormous space of use cases where it is possible to link an automatic payment to a digital signal. And this is not possible with traditional payment means. So there is a case for automation in the public sector, but also in the private sector. And what we are trying to do at ESMT, building or setting up a digital euro hub for advanced applications for the digital euro to enable market actors, to enable companies, not so much in the financial world, but in the real economy, to make use of these opportunities to reap the full potential of conditional payments. And we, of course, hope very much that in the legislative process and the preparation process at the ECB, the possibility for conditional payments will be provided right at the start of the digital euro, and not only in the second phase.
Yeah, thank you. This innovation angle, that's definitely super interesting. And I also have the feeling that often like the companies are kind of underrepresented in all that, like these company use cases. So for hosted CBDC, this open means it's just, the financial sector, and for retail, it's like, well, companies are not allowed to hold them, right?
May I just make a comment on the categories? I think they're a little bit flawed and do not cover all the use cases, because you have this wholesale discussion. Anne-Sophie pointed out the activities in that area. They have the retail, but when I read the papers of the ECB, retail is only consumer payments, but the vast area of use cases where the potential is the biggest is the B2B area. And this is not covered by these categories. Is B2B a retail payment? Is B2B a wholesale payment? So we should focus much more on that. And then we will bring in all the industries and the businesses and the corporates in the discussion, because they are the biggest benefiter of this innovation.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Joachim, for this addition. So last question is before we talk about implementation for the last 10 minutes to you, Tao. So we talked about the potential central bank benefits and use cases. Also, you talked about tourist payments. We heard point of sale payments, P2P payments. So also from your experience at the IMF, because you're looking at lots of global projects and are involved in that, right? What do you think are the key use cases that these projects focus on the retail side of things?
So for the IMF, we have been engaging with the member countries in the last 3 years. So far, we have been discussing with more than 50 countries regarding the retail CBDC. And also we have some, about 3 or 5 cases on wholesale CBDC. So from the request, we can see a major demand is from retail CBDC side. Regarding the use cases of retail CBDC, that's highly dependent on the specific policy objective of the country. I can give you one example of the difference of objective. Some countries, they have a low-income country. They have limited financial services and payment services. They have unbanked people. They have population who are excluded from traditional payment system. So they ask for financial inclusion objective. So that's one of the key use cases many emerging market economy and low-income countries, they want to focus on. So what I want to do, I want to promote financial inclusion. I want to provide payments to unbanked people. I want to promote the transaction of SME, small and medium enterprises. So that's one objective. Another objective, some countries are very concerned about the challenge of crypto assets. Like, oh, we have a crypto asset showing up, so we are worrying about the potential sovereignty of my central bank currency. So I want to issue digital central bank currency to counter the challenge. So in that case, many countries are using the use case of cross-border payments because many crypto assets in some country are being used as a venue to transfer money without sufficient regulation. So central banks are considering, oh, can I use a CBDC as a venue to promote cross-border payments? That's the second one. Another example is in some countries, some major players in that country are dominating the payment system, like e-money or banking sector. 2 or 3 are dominating. So the central bank said, oh, can I produce something to challenge or prevent the domination or manipulation of the major player? So they're producing CBDC to compete in the process. So in that context, the central banks are trying to promote the use cases across all the situations, from online, from offline, from daily work to daily life. So in that case, a lot of potential use cases are being explored. So in that context, we do think the use cases can be country-specific and it can be horizon-specific. In the short term, it could be very specific. I'm only focusing on pension distribution in my country because all the people are just queuing in front of the banks every month to get my pension. Now I'm using CBDC to distribute, right? So that's a short-term objective. But in the long term, my view is quite comprehensive. If CBDC want to be adopted eventually to compete or serve the market, they have to be widely used. So that's my answer.
Thank you. And looking at the clock, so we have 10 more minutes left, and really want to talk about this implementation angle as well, because we are now in the preparation phase. So the Eurosystem prepares to potentially implement, right? So we are in a new phase and should talk about in this domain as well. And maybe a question, and I ask everybody to be maybe to be precise in like 1 minute answer that everybody can also provide inputs here. Maybe to you first, Alex or Andre, as I said, really like quick, maybe 1 minute. What do you think are the key challenges, or maybe pick one key challenge around implementing the digital euro in potential the realization phase that might come up?
I think there are potentially, in a nutshell, three main challenges that we have to tackle, among others. But
maybe pick one.
One is obviously linked to your implementation. One is linked to your implementation question, and I think to some of the remarks we heard regarding the integration within the payment ecosystem. So we need to be really thoughtful about reusing standards and protocol and to integrate within existing payment devices and protocols. So it's not only providing an innovative platform, but it's also integrating within the last mile. And that's really important for taking into account, payment cards, existing mobile platforms and the likes. I think another topic which is high on the agenda is linked to confidentiality and privacy. I mean, we still need to refine here and to prove our case that we have the digital equivalent of a banknote when it comes to privacy. So that's a topic which is right now being looked at very thoroughly, and I think that will be also exposed and explained at length, to the wider public. A last one, and really a last one, is I think, for the future-proof ability for all this to fly, convergence between retail and wholesale CBDCs will be in the long run a topic of interest to us. So in a nutshell, and I'm not mentioning financial stability issues for commercial banks because we are studying that heavily in 2024, but in a nutshell, this is a project which is driving a lot of attention and debate, and actually this is really good that it happens this way.
Perfect, thanks Alexandre. Maybe turning to you next, Peter, for your 1 to 3, maybe one?
Only one. I think the main implementation question is who will build and manage the highway? Because as far as I can see, the ECB does not want to do that. They say private payments providers should do it. And it should be a European provider, as far as I understand, and as I understand it. The question is it really an attractive business case for payments providers to build this highway and to manage the highway? Because at the same time, the Commission says the fees must be very low. So the fees for using the highway are very restrictive. And the question is, do I really build this highway not knowing whether it will be used at all? Because the other highway is already existing and maybe no one uses it. I think that will be the main question to make it attractive enough for private payment service providers to build this highway and to manage the highway.
Thank you, Peter. Joachim, maybe a question to you next.
Maybe to the highway. I'm always fighting with this highway pictures. There is no highway which needs to be built by the private sector. The core of the system is a big machine which validates the transactions between individuals, and this is built by ECB, and no further highways are necessary. We are looking to the political process. That is also interesting because many of the features will be set by the legislature. In Brussels, the negotiations are, to my understanding, running smooth. Well, there are 1,000 amendments by the members of parliament, but that's manageable. So I guess we will see further decisions in the course of the year after the European elections. And I would like to encourage us here at the Digital Euro Association and this conference now not only to discuss but also to make clear requests to the legislators. This is not the time to, let's say, consider and reflect. This is now the time to send messages to the legislator, to the ECB, and we should maybe also use this conference to send out the clear message as far as the advanced applications is concerned. Please, legislator, please, European Parliament, European Council, ECB, provide us with these opportunities because there lies the biggest potential for the European economy.
Thank you, Joachim. And last but not least, Tao, what do you think in terms of key challenges?
I think there are two major challenges. One is adoption. Many central banks want to promote CBDC, but eventually they may not successfully adopt the CBDC. The key is the business model. So like a business model of who will collect fee, how much fees, by whom, to whom, right? So this is the first challenge. The second challenge is the micro-financial implication. Many central banks are considering CBDC from technology perspective rather than from micro-financial perspective or legal perspective. They are not worrying about the financial stability implication, monetary policy transmission, capital flow management. If they have a strong missing part in this microfinancial implication, the CBDC adoption cannot be successful. So I think that's the two major ones.
Great. Thank you very much, and also thanks Joachim also for the requests, and we are definitely also doing this more from the DIA side, because we are now talking to this important stakeholders, but also to working more closely with our members, with the community, to derive exactly the questions and the input you want to give. And I mean what we did, and also what we stressed last week in the financial committee of Bundestag is really that this privacy topic for us is super interesting. We will also more look at these aspects of this payment system versus payment object, because at least we think that's something that needs to go into the debate. And also this open source is something that we also we have actually I think 2 or 3 sessions on the innovation room later on, because that's something we push for with our CBDC manifesto for 1.5 years now. And actually 3 questions in the financial committee were about open source, because it's what you said, Peter, actually, who trusts that the privacy is really there, right? And I think the only solution there is really to at least partially put something on that open source. But that's just a side remark on what we focus on amongst other things. It was really a great panel, so thank you very much. Also Alexandre from France to joining. I think it was a really great start. And also remind everybody, of course, we do have the innovation room now, so a lot of people still here. A few also went to the room, so if other sessions are interested there, go there. We also record both, so you can look at them at home, whatever you missed, so just to mention that as well. Thanks again, everybody, and heading back to Marcel.